All right, let's let her rip. We are here today to talk about AI for learner agency and self-discovery, insights, inspiration from research and impact partnerships. We have a wonderful program established for you. And I want to begin by thanking Mimi for putting all this together and bringing the panelists and inviting me to be here. My name is Errol Arkledge. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer for UC Irvine, and that means I'm responsible primarily for managing the IP portfolio. UC Irvine is a Research One campus. We provide an enormous amount of innovation in the area of therapeutics, medical devices, AI, material science, sustainability, and it's my honor and privilege to be able to work with companies as they are either licensing technology from UC Irvine or with entrepreneurs who want to take technologies out of UC Irvine. So when we were talking about this and preparing for this, Mimi asked me to just provide a little bit of context. I want to begin by saying what we're really here today to do is to talk about an innovative approach to AI, one that focuses on how AI can support self-reflection and learner agency. The description of the panel and the activity is how can generative AI support that education that's not just personalized but driven by young people's unique strengths and interests. And the question is, can chatbots really engage in interactions to support self-discovery and understanding? And what we're going to do is we're going to hear from leading, not just researchers, but practitioners. And it's really exciting that we get the benefit of people that are not just thinking about this stuff, but actually deploying it. And it's a real honor to be here today. As I was preparing for this, the questions that came to my mind of agency really revolved around 5 elements. I had a question, and I'm hopeful that some of the panelists will consider these, is can AI really help with personalized pathways, learning pathways? And that's a big question that I have. I want to know if AI can also use self-regulation so that I, as a learner, can interact in a way that allows me to provide metrics or self-metrics. I want to know if you can enhance a human connection, like can you remove the challenge of the rote education so that when I'm interacting with my student, that I can be more really focused on the more human element. I also want to know if there's a way for us to promote access and level the playing field in terms of the quality of the content. Can we use best-in-class education or syllabus to really focus on providing that levelization? And then finally, and most importantly, from my point of view, is how can AI really foster creativity? And we're going to hear a lot about all of these elements today. Our panelists are, as I said, both researchers and practitioners, and we have a wonderful panel for you today. First, we're going to start off by having several presentations around the conceptual framework and then the deployment. We're going to start with June An, and I'm just going to give you a very brief overview of the background. June is a professor of senior and senior associate dean of UCI's School of Education. He directs Design and Partnership Lab, what we call the DAP Lab. Is that really what you call it? I love that name. He was also the founding director of the Orange County Educational Advancement Network, OCEAN. His work has been funded with nearly $30 million, including funding from the National Science Foundation, the Institute of Education and Sciences, the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, Gates, and others. It's a real pleasure to have June with us today. We also have Nathan Gebhardt. Nathan is the co-founder and AI advocate for Roadtrip Nation. He's worn many hats over his past 25 years, from leading brand strategy and overseeing teams creating Roadtrip Nation's long-running public television series. Has anybody not seen it? If you haven't seen it, you've got to take a look. It's really great. And kudos to the founders, both founders here, to have established such a really earth-moving content. Currently, Nathan is going to do AI, and he's going to talk a little bit about that. And his focus really and passion is connecting with students and learners across their interests throughout their careers and driving creation of a roadmap for the nation's first AI-powered experience. So I want to thank Nathan. Amy's here. Amy Kwan. She's the Director of Innovative Programs and Instructional Systems at the AUHSD, which I now understand is the high school, please. Anaheim. Yeah, I thought I had it down, but I'm glad that you were here to help me. She leads equity-driven work and redesign learning systems across and access to innovation, student-centered opportunities. She's also launched the district's incubator lab at Western to support students' college career and life goals. Previously, Mrs. Kwan was served as a high school math teacher, K through 12 math and science program specialist, and also middle school principal. And she was named the ASCA Region 17 Secondary Principal of the Year in 2020. Mike Mariner, thank you. Mike Mariner is co-founder and president of Roadtrip Nation. Mike leads the organization's media education efforts and empower people from all backgrounds to define their own roads in life. For over 15 years, Mike has developed the range of media and education partnerships to distribute Roadtrip Nation content to over 60 million households, 14 million students, and over 12,000 schools each year. And then finally, we have Ray Solorzano. He's been teaching social studies for 16 years at the AUHSD, which I now know is the, yeah, that's what he said. Thank you. For all of you who are challenged like me with remembering AUHSD, there will be a quiz. Thank you. And in addition to being a classroom teacher, Ray supports students in the workplace as an AIM summer internship coordinator, mentor, new teachers, and induction coach. And he works with the iLab at Western High School to incubate learning and accelerate breakthroughs. So those are our panelists. Please join me in thanking them for their participation today. The way that this is going to work is that we have a couple of presentations, first led by June, and then we're going to hand it over to the folks from Roadtrip Nation, and then back to the AUHSD to bring us home. So please join me in welcoming June on.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. So I get to play the role of the connector and the glue of this presentation, really kind of hopefully tee it up for my awesome partners. So I am a professor here at UC Irvine, and the things that I kind of want to highlight, so the DAP Lab, we do work in a particular way. We like to partner with community partners and organizations and really model like the role of the university, right, in that community partnership. So the things that I appreciate with the collaboration with y'all at Roadtrip, our partnership is really an example of an academic coming in as a thought partner with you all. I think I remember when, Nate, you were starting to design the AI experience, we would just meet and talk about like theoretical ideas about how we'd interact with AI. And we were, teaching you what we were doing in the lab around prompting and things like that. But then our role has really been in the evaluation together, trying to study the impact of the experience that Nate and Mike are going to show you. The partnership with AUHSD, I've been working with y'all for 2 years now, so I can say that, like, roll off my tongue. This is a different kind of partnership. We got money from Chan Zuckerberg to devise the project together. So they said, we love how you all partner. We're going to give you money. What do you want to do? Create the project. And so we actually spent time, months, co-creating, like, what is it that the district's trying to change? And then we actually stumbled on AI as a thing to design around to actually spur their systems change. So that's my memory of the beginning of our work. This is super important for me because it's not that I came in and said, I want to do a project on AI. Can I do it on you all, right? It was more like, you're trying to change something, and we figured out a technology to build together. The other cool thing I just want to highlight is the students. So a lot of what we build and prototype, are through this awesome team of students in the DAP lab that are, a lot of you all are here, so I'm going to give you all a shout out. But they're undergrad students, master's students, doctoral students. Like, we're building these prototypes and then using them like with 30,000 kids in a district. So sometimes that's scary, but also I think that's super cool that the projects that we are educating our students with and they're gaining experience with are actually getting used in the real world, right? So just a a little flavor of the DAP lab and what that means to me is like doing work in this way, right? Where we're just not producing papers, but we're also designing technology and things like that. And I should talk to Errol at some point because it's like, what do you do after a lab builds that, and how do we deploy that in the world? That's probably a gap in my knowledge, so I want to talk to you about that. But so you're going to hear two presentations from these two partners that are working with the DAP lab. And I just want to orient you to a couple of thinking points as you're listening to these projects and seeing what they do. To me, these are examples of thinking about designing AI for the whole range of learning experiences that we have, right? So we're not just designing AI to give us answers. We're not just designing AI to make our work faster, right? Like produce writing faster. Or we're not producing AI to tell kids what they're good at and sort them, right, into opportunities or things like that, right? I just want to make that really clear because it's really hard when a new technology starts to come out. We naturally design it for the things we know how to do. So we know how to grade kids and tell kids which college they get accepted to or not, right? I don't want AI to do that for me, right? We know how to, guide kids to understand some content. That's not an interesting problem for me, right? To have AI do that. What we don't know how to do, though, is to help build connections more equitably between mentors and kids. What we don't know how to do is help young people reflect on what's important to them for themselves and know how to connect that to a plan for their next steps, right? What we don't know how to do is think about how to make visible the assets and the skills they already have, right? That aren't reflected in traditional metrics like grades or test scores, right? So these are the harder problems. I'm just like going to be very blunt about it. Like, I think these are the more interesting problems to solve. And that is what ties together the presentations and these partners for me. And so I'm very super psyched that I get to partner with you all as two different organizations, but this is what it represents to me is I think we're working on like super wicked problems, right? And that's my Boston accent coming out. So with no further delay, I'm going to tee it up for Mike and Nate at Roadtrip Nation.
All right. So I'm Mike. I'm one of the co-founders of Roadtrip with Nate and our co-founder Brian, who's based on the East Coast now. But just to give you a little high-level overview of what Roadtrip is and how it started, and then I'll pass it off to Nate for the demo on the new AI experience we built with the team here. But Roadtrip Nation started 24 years ago, which is crazy. Next year it'll be its 25th anniversary, which is like mind-blowing. But we were once, undergrad college students like some of you in the room trying to figure out what we wanted to do with our life, and had gone through a lot of those assessments that June mentioned, where you take your aptitude test, sorts you into a career, go forth and go and choose one of 14 career clusters, right? We're like, there's only 14 career options in the world, and we just kind of had this thought of like, wow, before we make these like really big life decisions, what if we could just have this exploratory experience where instead of doing an assessment and being sorted, we get in a motorhome and go across America and interview people in different careers and who have different life journeys and just ask them how they got to where they are today. And, it was a life-changing journey for us. We interviewed over 85 people in over 3 months and talked to people about their personal journeys and the steps they'd taken in getting to where they are today. And we learned so much on that trip. We learned that like, oh, wow, you actually don't have to have everything figured out when you're 22 years old. And it's more important to have things that you're interested in. And in fact, no matter how crazy those things sound, like pursue those and try them on for size and take risks. And if you fail, that's okay. And we interviewed this guy in Burlington, Vermont, one of the early guys in the Burton snowboarding journey. And he said, when you magnify what it is you believe in, the world conspires to support you on your path. And that was like a defining quote for us on that trip. And so what we realized after coming up from that road trip, that what we really cared about was road trips and experiences and talking and like maybe paying that forward to other students to help them with create their own experiences too. And so that's essentially what we started doing. And I'll spare you the long story because it's a very long story, but that's what we've been doing for 24 years now, is essentially building programs, for students and partnering with some really innovative schools across America, high schools, colleges. We work with AUHSD as well, amazing school districts, super innovative, and build programs where students apply for the chance to go on these road trips every single summer. We have a curriculum where students build their own local project-based learning experiences. We've built a company, a social enterprise around this. We have 90 employees based in Costa Mesa. Half of them are mostly creatives and content producers, where we film all the content around these road trips and distribute it through PBS, through YouTube, through social, through different content licensing partnerships. And increasingly, but what's been like in the back of our head forever is like, how do we scale this impact? Like we can only put so many, we have a fleet of 8 motorhomes, which is great. But again, like you can't scale that experience. Like not everyone can take 3 months and go across America and interview all these people. But over the last 24 years, we've developed a database of videos of all of these interviews of people talking about their careers. It's now 13,500 videos. So 24 years of Roadtrip Nation has created this ocean of content and metadata around all these stories. So we not only have the video assets, but we have all the metadata and the skills they've gained and the failures they've had, and were they first in the family to go to college? Were they first generation immigrants? Like, did they have to deal with financial aid issues? Like, what were their interests growing up? So we have all of these rich data and portraits around 13,500 interviews. And so now I'll never forget that the day that Mimi and I chatted about this, it was like 2 years ago. And she's like, what are you doing with AI? She was like, this is the moment where you might be able to take finally all of this data, all of these stories, and create an experience around it for students that could be scaled. And she introduced us to June, who was doing some work around this. And we're just super grateful for our partnership with you all for the last year and a half. It's been a really amazing, catalytic partnership for us. And we've been able to pull together some stuff. And we're excited to show you we have a prototype that we built in the last year with a little bit of philanthropic funding we've been able to get. We've been testing it with, a couple hundred kids here and there in colleges, middle schools, community colleges. And we're going to show you it here. Not a lot of people have seen this, but we have big plans for it next year, and excited to see what you think. So I'll pass it over to Nate.
All right. I think for so long, Mike has been telling me like, there's got to be a way that we can do a virtual road trip that like anybody, anywhere at any time could have one of these experiences. And for so long, I couldn't find the path to make that meaningful and to make it personal. But when we came into like this space with generative AI, it was the first time where we realized like, oh my gosh, there's actually an opportunity here. And since you guys have been listening a lot, I want to just jump straight into it. And then we'll dive in. So this is just really a proof of concept. But the goal is, can we use AI to really create a personalized experience? So it's not just randomly connected to interviews, but can you make that deeply personal to the student and to every student so that every road trip is different? I'll play this little intro video and then we'll jump into it.
How do I know which path is best for me? Is it possible to take on these challenges and obstacles? Where do I even start? What should I do with my life? Sometimes the only way to find out is to go and see what's possible. That's why since 2001, we've been on the road gathering wisdom and guidance from thousands of people through our documentary series, Roadtrip Nation. Now, we've collected all the interviews we've done and all the knowledge that we found into this virtual road trip. On your virtual road trip, you'll hear stories and advice from inspiring people across the country. You'll get exposure to all kinds of career paths, and you'll get a deeper understanding of who you are and what you truly want out of your career. Before you hit the road, we'll start by getting to know you, because where you go on your virtual road trip is going to be determined by who you are and the things that you most want to explore. So So let's find out where your interests can lead.
My session is timed out. We're high on security. Cool. So we designed this as a proof of concept. Can we stitch AI to 13,000 videos in a meaningful way? And ultimately, we prototyped it in a classroom for a 30-minute activity. So we use AI. How's it in the back? Can you guys see okay? Want to make sure. Yeah, we'll go that way. So we use AI to tee up that conversation. And the virtual road trip in this prototype was a 3-stop road trip where you're interviewing 3 different people. And so the first interview is all around your interests. So you can share what your interests. It's multimodal. You can click buttons or you can type. I'll type. This is a rare day where I've spelled everything accurately, but if you spell poorly like I normally do, the AI does a great job of connecting it. We really want to validate, like we see this from an asset-based place, so the AI really affirms that any interest is fine. No interest is too small or too big, and that interests aren't in silos. This concept of combining interests is really what we see truthful in the world. If you are a designer for the 76ers jerseys, are you in the fashion industry or are you in the sports industry? You're in a combination of the two, right? So we take that. I'm going to, in the interest of time, skip this video that just describes the interview a little bit. And then taking from what the student shared, so I'm interested in nature, design, and technology, we then make recommendations. And so in this case, live on the fly, we're using AI to summarize each person's journey. So you're seeing that first top sentence summary. And then we're using the second sentence. That's a script that is, or a prompt that's looking at what the student shared and reading the transcript of the video that's about to be played to draw that personal connection to that student. And so in this case, we can look at a bunch of different interviews. I'm going to choose this one. And then with the metadata, we know we interviewed this person in Missoula, Montana. And so we stitched together a little bit of a story talking about driving to Missoula, Montana, known as the Garden City. And then we jump into our first interview. I'll play just a minute of this and then jump to the end.
I wanted to design a wall that breathed like skin. So I went back and I did a PhD in biology, and the professor mentioned this book that had just come out called Biomimicry. And when he explained what it was, I got up in the middle of class, walked out, walked to the bookstore, found the book, bought it, sat down, and I read it in one sitting. So I'm Dr. Dana Baumeister, and I am a partner at Biomimicry 3.8, and I am a professor of practice and co-director of the Biomimicry Center at Arizona State University. I am also a biologist by training, but for the last 25 years, I've been working in this field called biomimicry. And in fact, not only working in it, kind of creating the field. My business partner, Janine Benius, wrote the book on biomimicry, and I met.
So I'll pause there in the interest of time. But if you don't know what biomimicry is, because I didn't know before this interview, it is the idea of taking what works really well in nature and bringing it into our products. So most of us probably have some piece of Velcro on us right now. That Velcro was because some designer was walking his dog in the fields and saw that burrs would stick to the dog's fur and thought, wouldn't that be a great thing to bring back into our practical world? It's the same reason the wind turbines have little ridges on them. Those ridges mirror the ridges on the flippers of whales to reduce friction as they spin. And that is the practice of combining nature, design, and technology. And so really illustrating for the student that there isn't just a linear path to things. You don't have to think in the silos, and your interests are valid. I'll jump to the end and then keep going.
And the way you become creative and passionate is by following where your heart takes you.
So one last question. So knowing all you know, if there was one piece of advice that we would take away from this today, what should that be?
Trust in yourself and trust in nature. But don't get comfortable, right? Like keep experimenting, keep putting yourself in new situations, trying new things. That's how you know. That's how you learn. Not for me? Oh, that's for me. It's swimming in the interstitial spaces until you create exactly what you want to create, you know? And that's the way you share it with people. Like, I'm experimenting. I'm challenging myself. I'm testing myself. I'm experimenting.
And so at the end of each interview, we ask the student a thought-provoking question. And if you think of how we build this before AI, it would have been to hire a copywriter, write 35 generic sounding questions, and then randomly populate them at the end of every interview. And that would be good enough. It'd be okay, but it would be generic. And in this case, we're using what we know about the student, their interests, and then we're having the AI read the transcript and then generate a question that would be thought-provoking to deepen and enrich in the student's experience of what they just watched. In the interest of time, I'm going to jump to the end. There are 3 interviews. The first one you just saw is around interest. The second one is around noise. What's that like societal pressure that gets in the way of you kind of pursuing something that's true to yourself? And so we want to align a student with an interview that has somebody that shares that same noise. And then the last one is a shared hurdle. So the idea of what are some of those challenges that you're dealing with? So can we show you somebody that's dealt with that similar challenge? So it might be, I love video games, but I'm dyslexic. I don't know if there's a future for me in a career with video games. And we'll connect you to somebody who is a video game developer who is also dyslexic. And so at the end of a road trip, you get a neat little summary like this, where we stitch together the overall geography, the miles you traveled, and then the interviews that you conducted across the country. So this was the prototype that we put together with collaboration with June. We piloted it with almost 500 students. And I'll go really quick just to show some of the good findings. It was 483 students. We did middle school and high school through Avid, then 4-year institution through Georgia State University, and then community college at Skyline Community College. And the exciting thing is every single metric that we wanted to measure, we saw an increase in. And 8 of the 9 were statistically significant at 95. That 9th was 94%. So June said we couldn't count it. But we feel it's pretty close. I mention it every time. And I'll just pull out 3 stats because I want to make sure the folks from Anaheim have their adequate time. But just as a look at what we were able to see between pre and post survey, we saw a 12% increase in students saying, I feel confident to reach my goals. We saw a 12.6 increase in students saying, I believe that there are many career options available to me. And an 8% increase in the idea that I can identify with people like me who are working in a career that I'd like to pursue someday. So for us, this was just really exciting, the idea that we could stitch together AI and our video content and make something really personal and meaningful. And if we had another hour, I'd show you what's next, but that's not this presentation. Thanks very much. And thanks so much to June and me. You guys' mentorship through this has been so terrific.
So with our Anaheim Union High School District team, we are side chatting because there's so much overlap and work that we already do in incorporating Roadtrip Nation into our goal setting. And so we are looking forward to continue to have conversations. So as Professor Ahn talked about, we kind of stumbled upon AI in our story. And really what we've learned is AI helps you amplify whatever it is that you're already doing. In K-12 education, it is about college, career, and life readiness. In traditional K-12 education, there is a shift in metrics and how to predict that and measure that. And so oftentimes you will hear, do you value what can be measured or do you measure what you value? Unfortunately, in the mass industry of educating students, oftentimes it lands on valuing what can be measured. And so today I want to share with you a little bit of the timeline of the AUHSD story and how we stumbled upon AI to amplify what we want to do. And so it really starts in 2014, where Mr. Michael Matsuda is named the superintendent of AUHSD and clearly denounces testing as a driver in AUHSD. Literally says we will not look at test scores. We will not do interim testing. We actually don't have pacing guides. So if anyone's ever been in a secondary district and you ask those types of questions like, how do you know? When do you know how all the US history teachers, were you going to cover in March? And we said, yeah, we don't do that. So we have 30,000 students, we have 1,300 teachers, and we are not going to ask our teachers to count questions on a test and make sure we cover the ones that count the most for our students, and everyone is going to be on the same page on March 2025. At the time in public education, Common Core is coming out. There's a dashboard coming out in California. California kind of doesn't know what they're doing yet. It hasn't fully rolled out. So we kind of get away with this for a couple of years. So we're not going to do it. Our own teachers and our own systems says in 2017, the AUHSD way is we want to get together teachers, community members, students. We get over 200 of them. We call it the Tesseract. I think they're at the Anaheim Convention Center. And we come up with what we call the essential skills, 21st century skills, the 5 C's. 5 C's of communication, collaboration, critical thinking, creativity, and character and compassion. And we devise what we call our own descriptors. So we draft out what it means to be emerging, progressing, and excelling. There's a rubric, there's recommendations of what classrooms should do to develop these skills. And we tell the teachers, here's your guide, so that we can have some sort of common language, but it wasn't about every teacher must do this. All 7th graders will do this strand, all 8th graders will do that. It really is about unyoking the teacher's strength to pull out student strengths. And so in 2022, fortuitously, we get this opportunity from Chan Zuckerberg, who really puts Professor on AUHSD. We have a learning management system whose also goal is to measure what we call the soft skills or essential skills to help K-12 institutions make that switch. And Chan Zuckerberg says, go ahead. We will fund it for you guys to spend some time and figure out what it is that we do. And so we spend lots of time talking about, okay, yeah, we don't want to do rubrics. We don't want to calibrate and make everyone hand grade certain reflections or essays and see who scored them a 4 or who scored them a 5. We don't want to do that because we really want it to be student driven. And so we talk to June and we try to figure out, we come up with this idea, well, there's this new thing called generative AI that maybe they can do it for us. And we said, okay, we're going to do that. A couple of years later, we work on this tool that we're using, and actually the Carnegie Corporation and Transcend are looking for 10 cross-sector partnerships across the nation to recognize for measurable impacts in helping students matriculate up to higher education, career, or civic lives. And fortunately, UCI and AUHSD and eCadence get recognized as one of those 10. So we're very fortunate to also have some private funding to help measure our work. And I will talk about the next part. I also forgot to mention in 2015, we form what's called the Anaheim Collaborative in AUHSD. So if we're going to tell our community we're not going to do test scores, but we still care about you graduating, being college, career, and life ready. So everything that we're telling you is legit. This will help you. Our partners in it will co-sign with us. Our colleges are telling us, yes, it is a good thing for you to develop this thing called the 5 C's. And so in our long discussions with Professor On, he helps us think about what is the purpose of education and helps us provide that clarity of this old school way of testing and assessing students, sorting them, who's in the top 5%, who's in the top 20%. We don't have to do that. And really what our goal is to be asset-based. We have this driver called the 5 C's. So what if we centered it around student voice? we can do that. And we can use AI and pull out the way students talk about their own 5Cs rather than centering it around a system in which the adults in the room, the teachers, the educators, devise a system to say what you need to learn, how do you need to learn it, and how do you need to show that you learned it. So we go on this process, okay, we're gonna use this system where all of our students are going to do project-based learning. Our teachers have committed to that because we said no interim testing, you don't have to do that. We also have reflection super baked into the way we do business in AUHSD. So June says, okay, well, let's work on a strength that you guys already have. And why don't we look at the reflections that your students are already doing and see if we can pull out the 5Cs from the reflections. We work on that tool. We think it's great. For the first year and a half, it was about getting the data. It was about calibrating the data. Do we believe this is useful data? AI was really scary. Ray is going to talk about how we brought our teachers along in trusting that the data could be a useful tool to us. We're not trying to replace your jobs, all of that. Then about a year later, we finally reach what is actually our true goal. And it wasn't ever about getting the data. It was about how can the data help us be better teachers and learners when we have students in our classes every day, every period. So Ray can also talk to you about the system that we're building around getting very actionable data that's immediate, because even the state testing data, you have to wait like 8 months after the kids have taken it and they've already left your classroom to see how you did before you can take action on the students who are no longer in your classroom. So now we have this immediate data set that we can take action on. So now I'd like to pass it on to Ray.
So, as a classroom teacher, I want to talk a little bit about like what the actual tool is. And so this is what, we call the 5C dashboard. Student names are whited out here, but just quick at a glance to give you that idea. Amy mentioned that reflection is a very important driver, right, of how we assess our students' mastery in the classroom. And so across the board here, these are the 5Cs, and you can see all the blue dots. And, to give June some credit, as of January, the tool has analyzed over 200,000 transcripts. That's 7,600 PTAs. We call performance tax assessments in our teachers' classrooms. We ask our teachers to do at least one of these PTAs a semester in each class. And you can see the data, right? That is personalized feedback for my classroom for that particular assignment. And one of the cool things about the dashboard is you could zoom in and zoom out as needed. I can click on the reflection and I can actually see the transcript, and I'll show you in a second, of the student's actual reflection. They could type it, they could voice it, they could use multiple languages. And so it was really important as we go through this development process to make sure that we were collecting the student data, right, the way that the students wanted to give that information. And so it strengthens our commitments to our drivers, right, which are the 5Cs in AUHSD. But the important part is that last point there where it really strengthens the decision making, right? The so what piece. It's one thing to have all of this information, but so what? What are we going to do with this data? And so June, thank you, Professor On, has been working with us to develop some protocols around how teachers can actually, make some changes in their planning, in their teaching, in their assessing of students as well. And so one of the things that really helped even some of the more resistant teachers, I would not say that there is, this great acceptance or adoption of AI, but part of our job is to say, hey, look, this information is not perfect, and that's okay. To actually get the teachers to look at it and say, okay, according to the AI, my student is excelling, right? Or my student is progressing. And so we asked our teachers to go through a protocol to say, well, let's look at this information. Let's actually look at what the student reflection said, what the student said in their reflection. Let's look at the AI, what June and his team call an AI guesstimate, which I really do appreciate and value. And so I'll kind of show you some of this. And we actually work as a team to develop, hey, Where do you agree? Where do you disagree with this information? And what ended up happening is our teachers, our staff are getting more training and more practice with actually understanding what are the 5 C's, right? What are the 5 C's? What are we actually measuring? The student overview, you can see here, one of the things that traditionally, when we talk about those traditional metrics, how do we, even with our best intentions, when we are trying to help a student out, a struggling student or an excelling student, one of the things that we measure oftentimes is going to be grades, it's going to be attendance, it's going to be behavioral interventions, right? And a lot of that is coming from a deficit mindset when we talk about our students, in that manner. Instead, what if we have this beautiful dashboard that shows us our students' strengths, our students' assets? One of the things that's missing, in my opinion, right? Sometimes we think about what are the students doing outside of their academic classrooms? Maybe it's on the football field, maybe it's in the choir show. And have these students reflect on these really important moments in their life. And now the English teacher, the science teacher, the math teacher, right? We're seeing the students' strengths outside of our own classroom in a very visual appealing way. And so going deeper, right? Like I said, we'd zoom in, zoom out. And so this is an actual transcript of one of our students, a 7th grader, English language learner. And there's a lot of different AI happening. And when the student speaks to the tool, they are speaking in their, their natural language, their natural tone. And this particular student, it was challenging to me because you had to be prosaic where you're going to cut and where to glue. The AI is smart enough to know she probably meant precise. And so with that AI guesstimate, right, it's able to, again, using that student's natural language patterns to actually give the teacher some guidance. But one more time, it's not really about the data. It's not about what the AI is saying, hey, we think your student is excelling. It's about what the teacher does with that information. And so as one of the things I'll share here, I have a 7th grade student. We did a project on Minecraft. We were building rebuilding Mesoamerican civilizations in Minecraft. And this student, with all due respect, is a perfectly average student. Not trouble at all, but not one of my standout students by any means. When I read the response here, would say to me how my classmates exchange idea was like, Wendy and Kaylee, we're looking on how to make an Inca farm. She saw that they would make it in a circle, but then I saw that they would make it going up instead of going in a circle. So then at the end, we ended up exchanging ideas. And so instead of doing a circle in, we did the going up button because we tried the second one and it didn't work out, right? Perfectly natural 7th grade language. But this particular student, he loves to talk about himself. He's really good at reflection. And I had no idea that this is what he was doing in those breakout groups. I didn't know that they were having that level or depth of conversation. And so for me, what it really made me think about is, how do I measure success in my classroom? Right? And so I really am excited to talk about with the Roadtrip Nation about this later, because one of my ideas, I also teach 12th grade government and economics. And one of my ideas is, what if I could have 3 different pathways within my own class? Right? If there's a student that wants to do the traditional, completion, did you do this assignment? Do you know the production possibilities, curve? Great, right? Have that traditional metric. But then that mastery base where the students are going out entrepreneurial, creating their own business. But then what if I have that third where I really want my student to be more career prepared for what lies beyond school? And so a lot of this data, right, is just giving me some ideas of where the student might be. Amy's going to come back and talk about another part of it, because I believe in the teacher triangle, right, where I am one part of that triangle. The teacher is important. We have this information. But what about the student and what about the parent? Because they have a voice and they have a say in that light, they have agency, I'll say. They have agency as well in developing what they want their students to take from all this information.
So there are 2 types of systems that we're hoping to disrupt. The system of traditional teaching and learning, where the teacher comes up with the assessment and asks the question, and the student either got it right or wrong. We want to disrupt that. The demand on the teacher be more personalized and individualized, but that is a burden, and we recognize that at the secondary level, a teacher may have 200 students. So how can they still do that and still honor the student voice? We believe that this is a way that we can disrupt that. AI can help us with that. The second way we want to disrupt is the idea of what is considered college career and life ready. For the biggest part of the Anaheim Collaborative, we accepted the system as it was in selecting and sorting. And we played that game. We tried to help, like, no, actually, this kid is our top kid. Here are multiple metrics to share. And what we're really looking for now is the idea of best fit. Best fit for college admissions, best fit for employment, best fit for jobs, best fit for the student. And so we believe that shifting, having a tool like this and a system that works, we've gone system-wide with this in AUHSD. All of our students are doing this. All of our teachers are doing it. We believe that that's the shift of the future in having a booming economy and making sure that everyone is just in the right fit. And so here's a dashboard that we will show you of a student that we can help curate their experiences in high school, where they're able to show all of their reflections and some key points of their strength. Because our teachers are focusing on it, the tool, this is the student-facing tool, where it pulls out the strengths of the student the way the student talked about themselves. So now the AI will say, when you talked about that thing about communication strategy and how you took turns giving constructive criticism, that was a great way of you talking about communication. Totally the student's words. Now the student's resume is a little bit more personalized. Here is an example of a student artifact, the result of when our teachers teach to students the way they want to learn. So we have a instructional strategy called soapbox speeches. We have students pick a topic that they choose. So the next soapbox speech you're going to see, student completely chose it themselves. The teacher now is there to help support the student in their own passion. So imagine optimizing the human experience of the teacher and the student and that relationship versus a very traditional industrial way of teaching and learning. So I would like to, whoops. Oh, wow, I totally messed this up. So
That is my wife. Oh, this one, yes, those are my two daughters. In just below San Sebastian, Spain. Did you want to hit play?
Sure, let me tee it up for you. This is an 11th grader at one of our high schools. This is his project, and keep in mind, this student hasn't taken government or econ yet in 11th grade, and this was his soapbox speech.
At the end of last year, the Federal Reserve reported that 67.3% of the nation's wealth rested in the hands of the top 10% of America, while the top 0.1% owned 13.8% of the nation's money. Meanwhile, the bottom half of our country struggles to afford basic necessities. If this does not concern you, then hopefully the potential consequences of this problem will. If the wealth of the rich is left unchecked, there would be less than enough money to support the lives of the lower and middle classes. A shortage of money for these classes would result in poverty, leading to higher crime rates and a lack of education. Another possibility is the top 0.1% integrating themselves into our political system. For example, Elon Musk, the head of the Department of Government Efficiency, holds political and economic power. According to the Washington Post, on January 31st of this year, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, appointed by President Donald Trump, granted a team of people close to Elon Musk access to the Bureau of the Fiscal Service. The Fiscal Service pays for nearly all federal payments and processes transactions such as Social Security payments, healthcare benefits, tax refunds, and many other things. This man has never been elected, appointed, or confirmed to any government position, nor has he ever been a federal employee. Due to this fact, I do not believe that this man should be trusted with any government documents, because immense wealth should not grant you the right to view such private information. However, he has proven us wrong and has demonstrated to the country how much of a threat the ultra wealthy can be to our future and our democracy. To prevent more
contributed to the bottom half of the nation to offset the income inequality. However, a plan without the means to set it into action yields no results and remains a dream. Only you, the people of this nation, can fight this inequality by voting for politicians who will represent us and fight for policies that benefit everyone, not just the wealthy. That is all. Thank you.
So we believe that's an artifact that can come out from a student when we give students the freedom to pursue their idea and we're there to nurture their passion. So that is it.
Please join me in thanking Amy.
Okay.
We've got a couple of questions. I was taking notes furiously. Very exciting stuff. June, I will note that we, however, skipped over your section quickly. So I'll just ask you, is there anything about the partnership that you want to identify that we didn't talk about in the
So identify anything in the partnership.
anything that we left out that you should give us 30 seconds of that?
Really quickly, I think what Amy said I want to amplify, which is what's already happening with the partners. That's the magic sauce. So the part that you don't hear in the presentation is like the deep thinking about how you all think about career identity, right? Or the deep thinking you all do about how do we promote like 1,300 teachers changing how they teach in the classroom, right? So that's like the secret sauce that gets glossed over in a presentation, and I just want to name that, like that's where it all starts, right?
June, I'd like to interrupt there. And my second question goes to exactly that point, and it's to you, Ray. Ray, can you identify if there were typical personas of teachers' unwillingness to accept the technology? Like, did they have this profile or that profile?
You know, that's actually difficult. I actually work at it's called Cambridge Virtual Academy, which is a virtual school. And so those are some of the teachers that really are on, maybe the cutting edge, right, of technology adoption. And even within those ranks, I would say there's a lot of division on, where they feel about that. And so I think it goes back to, your basic fears, right? And there is a book, actually, a Super Agency. I'm a big fan of Reid Hoffman's book, where he talks about, one of the things, it's the fear that you are losing your own agency with these choices. So, and for the teacher to think, okay, well, if I, use this tool, I'm no longer doing my job. And so, one of those things that it's doing, I mentioned, it's 7,600 PTAs, it's 200,000, right? Even myself as a teacher, right? 200 students. And if they have 6 classes, I'm not going to be able to, listen to or read through all of their reflections, but can I just visualize that? And so giving the teachers the power to see, hey, it's not that you're losing your agency. It's just maybe we're using your critical thinking in a different way.
Thank you. Mike, this question is for you. Can you share with us what it was like when you first saw that demo, when Nathan showed you that demo and you had the reaction? Like, give us the honest opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd always like tried to figure out how to replicate that experience that we had on our first road trip, which is a long time ago. And I think I was like, oh my gosh, this is maybe the first time where we were like, this feels like that first road trip. And we always knew, like, it wasn't like we didn't want to like replicate traveling across America and seeing Mount Rushmore and that kind of thing. It was more about the conversations and the inspiration and the super agency that we felt by getting this like immersion of all these different stories around us. And that was what we'd always felt like kids weren't experiencing growing up, and that they were just being put through the Myers-Briggs test, assorted, and I really appreciate what you said about AI, not just replicating what we know we can already do and just doing it better. It's like at its best, you can get rid of that sorting linear thing and create more experiences, and that's definitely how we're thinking about it too, is like, can we somehow replicate that experience of that feeling of like traveling across America, talking to people, going on a journey, kind of wayfinding your way through, and so yeah.
Thank you. That's great. Amy, this question is for you. You described the notion of having the data present itself to identify where you were going, kind of an emergent sort of understanding. I'm wondering if there are other opportunities where you've seen emergent behavior, where you started off in direction A and then you found that you were actually going towards something more valuable and landed on point B. I'm sure you've had some experiences like that.
So I have my colleagues here, Amanda Bean and Scott Rendell. We went in lots of different directions, actually. I think there's a couple of big learning experiences that we had with this. I think we assumed that because we had unyoked our teachers and said, you don't have to teach to the test, that meant they were very open to anything. We went super individualized to the teacher, and at first with the 5 C's, we said, why don't you just give a gut reaction on a student? We give citizenship grades. So if you've seen traditional K-12 report cards, teachers give citizenship grades like outstanding or work ethics. So that seems very soft skills. Like we're like, why don't you try it with the C's? You can do this. We've done it. Wrong. A lot of our teachers were like, no, I can't possibly give that type of score on a student, which number one told us that the value of the 5 C's was much bigger than we thought. So we capitalized on that. Okay. So I think a lot of the learning from Professor On, one thing that really helped us is letting our teachers know that if you're doing generative AI the right way, about 80% accuracy is better than what humans do. And so the second we started using that narrative that AI isn't meant to be perfect or accurate, it's supposed to maybe help us change the way we can do business, optimize the teacher experience. It's giving you an indicator. It's not meant to be accurate or predictive, as Professor On has taught us. If you're emerging in communication, that does not mean absolutely that you're an emerging communicator or that you will forever and ever be an emerging communicator. It means the teacher, you have time because you have the kid in your class the next day for another 50 minutes. Let's do something about that. And I think doing that over and over and over and seeing results like you saw the student, I think has really helped us build momentum around the system.
Thank you, Amy. This is the last formal question before I throw it to the panel to give us what will be their parting words. And that last formal question goes to you, Nathan. And my question is AI the path to personalized learning?
I mean, I don't know if I'm an authority on that, but I will certainly say we've used it in a way that is much more personal. And I would say I'm doing that even in my house. Like when we first got into AI, the best way I onboarded into how to use this tool was to just use it at home. And so I started to use it helping my daughter with her math facts. And so I realized learning how to prompt the right way all of a sudden gave her a richer experience. You know, she could do her math facts in the voice of a pirate. But I think a big piece of...
Is that before or after you took her to Spain to jump off the bridge?
Simultaneously. I think an interesting challenge we're looking at right now is like, how do you make sure there's still friction in the system? When we learn best with a challenge. And if AI is personalized but just too easy, are we really going to learn? And I think it's really about trying to find out places and where you can make not only the learning personal, but a little hard, because that's where the deep learning comes. I don't think it's just personal. I think it's like rich and endearing learning that we're after. So I hope done right, it could.
Thank you for that. I think one of the phrases that came to mind as you were speaking was the notion of anti-fragility, that you actually, the plant needs the wind to blow on it to strengthen its stem. Okay, parting words. Amy, you get 10 seconds. What are the last things that you want to leave? And we're going to go right down the line. 10 seconds, Amy.
All learning is personal, and so AI is just helping the system see what that learning actually is.
Great. Thank you. That was 8.
I believe that AI is going to lead to a shift in skills, right? So for so long, we've been a written kind of based language, and perhaps now we're moving more towards spoken, and that's okay. Shift with it. Shift with it.
That was 12, so that you got the 4 seconds. Go ahead.
I'm going to speak to the students and researchers in the room since we're on a campus. The role that we can play is in how we help folks think about the theories and things that we design from. And for the design students, it's designing for the non-obvious, not just what we know. Right.
Making it feel less technological and making it feel more like an experience.
Is it double fisting?
Bring us
right?
home, Nathan.
I would say don't lose the friction. Work hard.
All right, please join me in thanking the panelists one last time.